The Vector WX3 promised to be the ultimate American hypercar with 1,000 horsepower and a 240 mph top speed. Only two prototypes exist in the entire world, one coupe and one roadster, and Jerry Wiegert kept them hidden for decades. The Roadster's odometer mysteriously showed 89,018 miles when it debuted at Geneva, despite being brand new. But why did Vector program fake mileage into a prototype? How did a hostile takeover kill the most advanced American supercar ever designed? And what made these two cars worth millions despite never reaching production? These are 20 mind-blowing secrets about the Vector WX3 that will leave you speechless. Number 20. The three-person supercar. Here's something nobody expects in a 248 mm hypercar. Bench seating for 3 people. The WX3 coupe didn't follow the typical 2-seat supercar formula. Instead, Vector installed a 3-across bench seat carried over from their W8 export models. Picture this. You're sitting in the middle of a carbon fiber rocket ship flanked by 2 passengers while twin turbos scream behind your head. The center position put you directly in line with the car's spine, giving the driver the most balanced feel of any supercar. Ferrari and Lamborghini were building 2-seaters for millionaires. Vector was apparently building 3-seaters for millionaires with 2 very brave friends. The Roadster kept things conventional with 2 seats. But that coupe? That was Vector's way of saying even hypercar rules didn't apply to them. Number 19. The fighter jet construction. Vector didn't just use exotic materials. They built the WX3 like an actual military aircraft. The chassis combined carbon fiber, Kevlar, and aluminum honeycomb structures with an integrated roll cage that would make a NASCAR team jealous. This wasn't marketing fluff either. Jerry Wiegert had aerospace connections and literally hired engineers from defense contractors. The body panels were hand-laid carbon fiber when most supercars still used fiberglass. The aluminum honeycomb core provided incredible rigidity while weighing almost nothing. They even used military-spec adhesives instead of traditional welding in critical areas. One engineer claimed the WX3's structure could survive a 200 mm impact better than any contemporary supercar. The total weight came in under 2,800 pounds despite having 2 turbos and all-wheel drive hardware. When Lamborghini was still figuring out carbon fiber, Vector was building cars like classified aircraft. Number 18. The sliding window secret. Forget power windows. The WX3 coupe had something even more unusual. Vector installed sliding side windows like you'd find in a 1980s pickup truck, but for completely different reasons. Weight savings? Partly. The real reason was packaging. The scissor doors and extreme aerodynamic shape left no room for traditional window regulators, so Vector engineered lightweight sliding panes that moved horizontally in tracks. But here's the clever part. They integrated the side mirrors directly into the A-pillars to maintain clean airflow. The windows used special seals developed for aircraft to stay weatherproof at 200+ mph. Owners would literally slide their windows open like they were in a delivery van, except this delivery van had 1,000 horsepower. The Roadster used a different solution with fixed windows and massive air conditioning to compensate. Sometimes the simplest solution is the weirdest one. Number 17. The odometer conspiracy. When the Vector WX3 Roadster appeared at the 1993 Geneva Motor Show, sharp-eyed journalists noticed something bizarre. The odometer showed 89,018 miles on a brand new prototype. This wasn't a used demo car. It had literally just been completed. So why did Vector program fake mileage into their show car? The official story was demonstrating reliability, implying the car had been thoroughly tested. The real story might be more clever. High mileage suggested extensive development, making investors think Vector had done years of testing. It was psychological warfare against competitors who brought fresh from the factory prototypes with 12 miles on the odometer. Some insiders claim Wiegert picked that exact number for personal reasons, possibly coordinates or a coded message. Others think it was simply meant to generate exactly this kind of speculation and press coverage. Whatever the truth, it worked. People are still talking about those mysterious miles 30 years later. Number 16, the copyright weapon. When Megatech staged their hostile takeover of Vector in 1993, Jerry Wiegert pulled off one of the smartest defensive moves in automotive history. He copyrighted the WX3's design, not patented, copyrighted, like it was a piece of art. This wasn't standard practice in the auto industry, but it was perfectly legal. By copywriting every curve, vent, and surface of the WX3, Wiegert ensured Megatech couldn't build the car without his permission. They owned the company, but he owned the design. It was checkmate. Megatech's lawyers spent months trying to find a workaround. They couldn't change the design without ruining the aerodynamics. They couldn't build it as is without facing copyright infringement. The WX3 became the most legally protected supercar design ever, killed not by engineering problems, but by intellectual property law. Wiegert kept both prototypes as his personal property, while Megatech got an empty factory. Number 15, the double Geneva debut. Vector pulled off something unprecedented at the Geneva Motor Show. They debuted the same car twice. In 1992, they showed a silver WX3 coupe that wowed the crowd. Then in 1993, they returned with that same coupe repainted in aquamarine teal. But wait, they also surprised everyone with a purple amethyst roadster nobody knew existed. The color change wasn't random. Aquamarine matched Jerry Wiegert's Aqua Jet corporate logo, turning the coupe into a rolling billboard for his brand. The purple roadster was meant to show Vector could build multiple variants. 2 prototypes, 3 colors, 2 Geneva debuts. It was marketing genius or desperation, depending on who you ask. The press ate it up. Every magazine ran stories about the new Vector, even though the coupe was the same car with fresh paint. Sometimes in the supercar world, perception matters more than production. Number 14, the transaxle Frankenstein. Vector needed a transmission that could handle 1,000 plus horsepower in a mid-engine layout. Their solution was beautifully insane. They took a GM Turbo Hydromatic 425, a front-wheel drive transmission from Oldsmobile Tornados, and completely re-engineered it as a mid-engine transaxle. This wasn't a simple flip and reverse job. Vector's engineers essentially rebuilt the entire case, created custom gear sets, and added aerospace-grade cooling systems. They reinforced every internal component to handle 4 times the original torque rating. The 3-speed might seem primitive, but it was bulletproof. While other supercars were grenading their fancy 5 speeds, the WX3's transmission could handle repeated 1,000 horsepower launches. GM engineers who saw it later admitted it was one of the most thorough transmission rebuilds they'd ever seen. A humble Oldsmobile transmission transformed into a hypercar component through sheer engineering will. Number 13, the 2-engine mystery. Here's where things get really confusing. The WX3 coupe and roadster had completely different engines despite being built at the same time. The coupe packed a 7.0-liter twin-turbo Rodec V8, making somewhere north of 1,000 horsepower. The roadster used a smaller 6.0-liter twin-turbo, producing only 650 horsepower. Why build 2 different engines for 2 prototypes? Some say the roadster was the entry-level model for mere millionaires. Others claim the 7.0-liter was too violent for convertible duty. The truth might be simpler. Vector was testing which engine to use for production. The Rodec motor was pure insanity, while the 6.0-liter was almost reasonable. Neither made it to production, but both prototypes still have their original engines. Imagine explaining to customers why their identical-looking WX3s had 350 horsepower differences. Number 12, the Hollywood cameos. Before the WX3 became a garage queen, it lived a brief life as a TV star. The car appeared in Beyond 2000, showcasing future technology that actually existed. Bridgestone hired it for a tire commercial, though they probably never tested those tires at 248 mph. The strangest appearance was in Burke's Law, a detective show that needed a car weird enough to be a murder clue. The WX3 played itself, an impossibly rare supercar that narrowed down the suspect list to about 2 people on Earth. Vector even loaned it to various Los Angeles events where it sat next to movie props, and nobody could tell which was which. The car looked so futuristic that people assumed it was CGI or a concept that would never run. Little did they know they were looking at one of only 2 examples of America's most advanced supercar. Number 11. The scissor door statement. In 1993, scissor doors meant one thing: Lamborghini. Vector didn't care. Both WX3 prototypes featured upward opening doors that screamed Italian exotic, except these were designed in Wilmington, California. But Vector's doors were different. They used Aerospace-grade hydraulic struts that could hold the massive carbon fiber doors at any angle. The hinges were over-engineered to handle thousands of cycles without sagging. They even included emergency release mechanisms inspired by fighter jet canopies. The doors sealed so tightly that Vector had to install pressure relief valves to prevent window blowouts when slamming them shut. Lamborghini might have invented scissor doors, but Vector perfected them. The Roadster's doors were especially impressive, maintaining perfect alignment despite missing the roof structure for support. It was American engineering solving Italian problems with aerospace solutions. Number 10. The DOHC Dreams. The prototypes used pushrod V8s, but Vector had bigger plans. Internal documents revealed designs for DOHC, dual overhead cam, versions making 600 to 1200 horsepower. These weren't just sketches. Vector had working relationships with racing engine builders ready to create these motors. The base model would get a naturally aspirated 600 HP DOHC V8. The mid-range would add single turbo for 850 horsepower. The flagship would run twin turbos for 1200 horsepower. In 1993, Vector even planned variable valve timing years before it became common in supercars. The DOHC engines would have put Vector on par with Formula One technology. Prototypes were supposedly built and tested, but nobody has seen them since the company collapsed. Somewhere in a warehouse, there might be Vector engines that would still embarrass modern hypercars. The pushrod prototypes were just the beginning of Vigert's horsepower war. Number 9. The 3-speed superiority. Everyone mocked Vector for using a 3-speed transmission in a supposed hypercar. Vector had the last laugh. Their modified GM 3-speed could handle more torque than any contemporary 6-speed manual or fancy dual clutch. The gear ratios were so perfectly spaced that the car never felt like it needed more gears. First gear could hit 95 mph. Second took you to 165. Third gear ran all the way to the claimed 248 mph top speed. The transmission cooler was bigger than most cars' radiators. While Ferrari and Lamborghini customers were replacing clutches and synchros, the WX3's transmission would run forever. GM's commercial truck division actually studied Vector's modifications for their own heavy-duty applications. Sometimes the smartest engineering solution is the simplest one that works. The 3-speed became a statement. Vector didn't need 6 gears to dominate. Number 8. The sticker shock strategy. At the 1993 Geneva show, Vector dropped a bomb. The WX3 would cost $765,000. In today's money, that's nearly $1.6 million. For context, a 1993 Ferrari F40 cost $400,000. A Lamborghini Diablo was a bargain at $240,000. Vector was pricing themselves above everyone. But here's the thing, they might have gotten it. The WX3 offered technology nobody else had. All-wheel drive in a mid-engine layout. Over 1,000 horsepower when others struggled to make 500. Aerospace construction that made carbon fiber Ferraris look agricultural. The price was part psychology, part reality. At $765,000, Vector was declaring themselves the pinnacle of automotive engineering. Only 2 customers would ever get the chance to prove them right or wrong. The Megatech takeover killed the car before anyone could write that check. Those prototypes are now worth far more than the original asking price. Number 7. The hidden AWD system. Vector claimed the WX3 had all-wheel drive, but nobody could figure out how. The prototype showed no front drive shafts, no front differentials, no obvious AWD components. Was it a lie? Not exactly. Vector had designed a revolutionary electromagnetic AWD system that existed only in the computers. The idea was brilliant. Use electric motors in the front wheels powered by the engine-driven alternator. No heavy drive shafts, no complex differentials, just instant electric torque when needed. It was essentially a hybrid system decades before anyone else tried it in a supercar. The prototypes carried the wiring and control systems, but not the actual motors. Vector planned to install them in production versions. The system could vector, pun intended, torque to individual wheels for perfect handling. Imagine having torque vectoring AWD in 1993. The technology was so advanced that when engineers from major manufacturers examined it years later, they couldn't believe Vector had figured it out with 1990s technology. Number 6. The reliability ruse. That 89,018-mile odometer reading on the Geneva Roadster wasn't the only reliability claim Vector made. They told the press the prototypes had completed 100,000 miles of testing. They claimed the engines were validated for 200,000 miles of street use. They said the transmission was tested for 1 million gear changes. It was all theater. The prototypes had maybe a few thousand actual miles between them. But Vector understood perception. Supercars had reputations for breaking down constantly. By claiming massive testing mileage, Vector positioned the WX3 as the reliable hypercar. The irony? Their overbuilt components probably could have lasted that long. The Rodec racing engine was designed for endurance racing. The GM transmission was commercial-grade tough. The Aerospace construction would outlast fiberglass bodies by decades. Vector was lying about testing they didn't need. The cars were probably more reliable than they claimed, just unproven. Number 5. The Aqua Jet identity. Why repaint a perfectly good silver prototype teal? The answer was pure Jerry Wiegert. Aqua Jet was his personal brand, his signature, his identity. The aquamarine color matched his corporate logo exactly. By repainting the coupe, Wiegert was marking his territory. This wasn't just a Vector product. This was his creation. The color choice went deeper. Wiegert had used Aqua Jet branding since the 1970s, long before Vector existed. It represented his vision of combining aerospace and automotive technology. The teal WX3 was the ultimate expression of that vision. When Megatech took over, they wanted to change the color back. Wiegert refused, claiming it would damage the paint and decrease value. Really, he was protecting his legacy. That aquamarine coupe remains the most photographed Vector ever built. The color became so associated with Vector that other manufacturers avoided similar shades. 30 years later, that exact teal still means Vector to enthusiasts. Number 4. The restoration revelation. When both prototypes went up for sale in 2019, potential buyers got a shock. The coupe needed $300,000 in mechanical work. The Roadster required $116,000 at Miller Motor Cars. These weren't rust buckets. They'd been stored properly. So what needed fixing? Everything. The turbo systems needed complete rebuilds. The aerospace-grade electronics had degraded. The hydraulic suspension components had seized. The custom cooling systems needed re-engineering. But here's what the restoration revealed. The basic engineering was sound. Once rebuilt, both prototypes ran perfectly. The engines made their claimed power. The transmission shifted smoothly. The handling was as revolutionary as promised. Those restoration bills prove something important. The WX3 wasn't vaporware or a styling exercise. It was a real, functional hypercar that just needed production development. Given another year, Vector might have sorted these issues. Instead, we got two museum pieces that occasionally remind the world what could have been. Number 3, the Monterey Resurrection. In 2024, something incredible happened. Both WX3 prototypes appeared together at Monterey Car Week for the first time in decades. The automotive world lost its collective mind. Here were the only two examples of America's most ambitious supercar, side by side, both running. The reaction was electric. Younger enthusiasts who'd only seen pictures couldn't believe the cars were real. Older collectors who remembered the Geneva debuts were stunned they still existed. The bidding was fierce but secretive. Both cars were in private negotiations. What made it special wasn't just rarity, it was vindication. 30 years after Megatech killed the dream, the WX3s were worth more than Vector ever dared charge. They'd outlasted their critics, their competitors, and even their creators' wildest expectations. The Monterey appearance proved the WX3 wasn't just a footnote in supercar history. It was a legitimate milestone that deserved recognition. Number 2, the one-of-one reality. Every supercar claims rarity, but the WX3 takes it to another level. One coupe, one roadster. That's it. No customer cars, no additional prototypes, no secret stash discovered in a warehouse. Ferrari made 311 F40s. McLaren built 106 F1s. Bugatti made 450 Veyrons. Vector made 2 WX3s, and that's all there will ever be. This isn't just rare, it's irreplaceable. When other supercars crash, owners buy another one. If either WX3 is destroyed, that variant is extinct forever. The pressure on owners must be crushing. You're not just maintaining a car, you're preserving the only evidence of American automotive ambition at its peak. Both prototypes are now in private collections where they're treated more like artifacts than automobiles. They represent not just Vector's pinnacle, but the end of an era when small companies could still dream of building world-beating supercars. And before our final revelation, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more automotive mysteries and comment below if you knew any of these Vector secrets. Number 1, the Megatech Massacre. The real tragedy of the WX3 wasn't engineering or money, it was timing. In 1993, Megatech executed a hostile takeover of Vector just as the WX3 was ready for production. But Megatech didn't want to build Wiegert's vision. They wanted the Vector name to sell their own inferior designs. The WX3 was too expensive, too complex, too ambitious for corporate bean counters. Wiegert fought back with copyrights and lawsuits, ensuring Megatech couldn't bastardize his creation. The result? Nobody won. Megatech got a factory with no products. Wiegert kept 2 prototypes of a car that would never reach customers. The American supercar industry lost its most promising player. Internal documents suggest Vector had orders for at least 50 WX3s at full price. Wealthy collectors were ready to put down deposits. The production line was being prepared. Tools were ordered. Suppliers were lined up. Then Megatech pulled the plug. They dissolved Vector's engineering team, sold off the equipment, and tried to build a cheap Lamborghini knockoff instead. It failed spectacularly. By 1994, Megatech's Vector was dead. The WX3 prototypes became orphans, testament to what happens when corporate greed meets engineering excellence. Those 2 cars aren't just rare supercars. They're rolling reminders of the day American automotive ambition died at the hands of foreign investors who never understood what made Vector special. Jerry Wiegert spent the next 3 decades protecting his prototypes, ensuring they survived as monuments to his vision. When enthusiasts see a WX3 today, they're not just looking at a car, they're looking at the last stand of independent American supercar manufacturing, preserved in aquamarine and amethyst for eternity.